Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Welcome, everyone, and hello. This is Sinikka Waugh, your host on the Even Better podcast. I'm so delighted to have you today. This is part of our ongoing mission at Your Clear Next Step to help us all have even better workdays so that together we can co-create better communities. I am thrilled to welcome to our show today my guest, Saby Waraich. Saby, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
For those of you who don't know, Saby is part of the Speakers Network, and I had the opportunity to meet Saby a couple of times. Now we've been in the IIBA and the PMI speakers tables together, and I have been struck by his conversational style at the table among speakers and the way he captivates his audience. He is clearly a internationally recognized keynote speaker, is what it says on his profile, but I can tell you he's also a audience recognized keynote speaker, right? The audience sits on the edge of their seats as they listen to him share his message, and conversationally at the table among speakers, whether the novice speakers, for those of you who are listening to this and you're like, yeah, I've spoken at chapter events and I'm just someone who speaks sometimes, or professional speakers who are recognized and who have become professional speakers in that right and know that lends something else to the table. There's a difference between those who can converse with anyone and those who are speakers and separate themselves somehow from the crowd. And let me just tell you that Saby, in this moment, he's one of the guys who can step with any crowd and have these conversations that put anyone at ease and really welcome anyone into the conversation. And Saby, I genuinely appreciated that about you. Thank you so much for putting anyone at ease and welcoming us all to the table.
Absolutely. No, thank you for such a kind introduction. I really appreciate it. I don't think I have ever been given that kind of a kind welcome. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You bet. And this is part of our ongoing mission here at Your Clear Next Step to help us all have even better workdays so that together we can co-create better communities. And isn't that what it's all about? We go to work, we spend a lot of time at work, and then we drive home from work. And if we've had a crappy day at work, then we're going to drive home crappily, and we're going to spend our evenings engaging with those we've chosen to spend our lives with something less than our best selves. And we might not step up and volunteer, and we might not step up and give our best selves in our evening activities to others around us. But if we've had a great day at work, then we're more inspired to drive safer and be kinder and volunteer and participate and contribute and give back. And I am just thrilled here to have Saby with us today. He is an internationally recognized keynote speaker. He is Chief Information Officer, Chief Information Security Officer by day as a full-time job, and still finds time to contribute into the conversation. He is a thought leader, a global thought leader in leadership and project management. And I'm just so delighted to have this conversation. And we're going to be talking about purple cow leadership. And if that doesn't stop you in the tracks right there. So Saby, let's talk a little bit about purple cow leadership first and foremost. Where did that idea come from? And then before we get too far into the where did it come from, I want to pause and just make sure that our audience understands this is probably for all of us, right? Purple cow leadership isn't just for leaders. It just isn't just for CIOs, right?
Absolutely. It is all of us, right? We all have leaders somewhere inside. And sometimes we are so scared to stand out, thinking about what other people are going to think about me. We have all these negative thoughts which come to our mind, which are stopping us to stand out and shine sometimes limelight on ourselves. Because I grew up in a very Asian culture, and Asian culture is more like, hey, be humble. Don't talk about your accomplishments. But if you are not going to talk about your accomplishments, who else is going to talk about your accomplishments? Be humble in that. But sometimes it's okay to shine that limelight on yourself. So the story behind Purple Cow is, think about a farm. The farm has a lot of cows. Some are big, some are small. Some have big black spots. Some have big white spots, right? So as you are passing through that farm, what are you going to see? You're just going to see a lot of cows, right? Now, let's put a purple cow right there in the middle. Would that get noticed? Absolutely. So how can you become that purple cow? A purple cow leader is basically somebody who leads with that positive mindset, who unchains him or herself, leads with that passionate energy. A purple cow leader get relationships. So we're going to talk about all these principles, which are going to help you to stand out as a leader.
Oh, fantastic. So we were sharing just a little bit of connection before we got on this interview, and I shared briefly that I was a literature major, so my background is in languages and literature, and there's a poem from years ago. I never saw a purple cow. I never hope to see one, but I can tell you anyhow, I'd rather see than be one. But I don't think that's going to be true after we're done with this conversation. I suspect I'd rather be a purple cow.
Yeah, Sinikka. So, I just came back from a trip from Belgium, Brussels. I was speaking over there. And one of the attendees was like, have you heard about this chocolate called Milka? Milka. And I was like, no. He was like, you should check it out. So I checked Milka, and guess what? There's a purple cow right there on top of Milka. I was like, wow, I found my purple cow right there.
I can't believe you don't know Milka. It is the finest of the dairy milk chocolates out there.
Yeah, I wasn't aware about that, right? So I just ordered few Milka. That's my purple cow right there for me.
That's fantastic. That's great. Okay, so 5 things. We're going to talk about 5 things to stand out as a purple cow. So let's talk about the first one. I recall that a positive mindset is generally the first place you go. So let's talk about positive mindset. What is that?
So, during a day, we get about 70,000 thoughts. Can you guess how many of those thoughts are negative? Take a guess. Take a wild guess, Sinikka.
So is it going to depend on the person, though? Because, man, I have a lot of positive thoughts, Saby.
Yeah, on an average, when I do this presentation, sometimes I've heard people saying, Saby, 69,999 of those thoughts are negative. I was like, okay, come on. You definitely need to step up your game. But that's on an average, about 75 to 80% of our thoughts are negative on an average. We are every single day blaming ourselves, not taking care of those thoughts. We have to step out of those thoughts. And rather than stopping those thoughts, what I say is reframe those thoughts. I call these thoughts like ants, ANTS, automatic negative thoughts. So when these thoughts come in, don't just try to stop them. And most of the time people try to, stop them. What is happening is inside your mind, inside your brain, if you try to stop something, your brain or your mind is going to say, oh, this must be real because that's why you're trying to stop it. And then even though that is not there, it becomes a reality for you. And sometimes that creates a lot of anxiety within us because we're trying to stop those thoughts. And if they are not stopping, they're becoming more stronger. So all I say is reframe those thoughts and start validating those thoughts. And is there a data behind it to create the fear, which sometimes those thoughts create? And my first exposure to reframing your thoughts was reading a book called The Secret. Have you heard about that book, The Secret?
The Secret. I don't. Tell me about it.
Okay, so usually people say, secret? I've never heard about that. Like, Secret has all the secrets, by the way.
Right.
But it basically tells you is you change your thoughts and you change your reality. Right. So I have a great example. I was supposed to speak at Utah one time at their lunchtime session. And I booked my flight like 6:10 in the morning, and I put an alarm for 4:45 a.m. So the thought process behind that was 4:45, I'm going to wake up. 5 o'clock, I should be ready. My dad was supposed to drop me off at the airport. I live about 10 minutes away from the airport. 5:10, I'll be at the airport. 6:10 is my flight. Ample time. At that time, I had a new smartphone, and it had a functionality called Do Not Disturb. Do you have that on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Right. So by default, my Do Not Disturb override my alarm. So 4:45, I'm sleeping. 5 o'clock, I'm sleeping. 5:15, I'm still sleeping.
Oh.
So my dad knocks on the door and says, are you ready? So what's the first thought which comes to your mind after you look at that clock?
This is not a happy thought. This is an, oh crap, something's gone wrong.
Yeah. All kind of negative thoughts. Something is not right. So I quickly got myself aware of that thought. I said, no, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to speak at Utah today. I caught the thought, reframed it, quickly got ready, 5 minutes, got, no shower, nothing, put on my clothes, grabbed my laptop bag, ran out the door with my dad. We got to the airport by 5:30. So when I booked my flight like 6:10 in the morning, I thought like, who's gonna fly like 6 o'clock in the morning? Guess what?
Everybody.
Everybody flies at like 6:10 in the morning. And the line was all the way till the end. And the thought which comes again is, oh my God, there's no way, Saby, you're gonna catch that flight. So I quickly caught that thought, and I said to my dad, I said, Dad, you go back home and I'm gonna catch that flight. So he gave me that look like, who's gonna take you home once you miss that flight kind of a look. And then I go over there, talk to the TSA person over there. I say, can I break this line? And she was like, there's no way. Her answer was no. I was like, what? And then I saw myself, visualize myself speaking at Utah. I said, no, everything is happening, and I'll be successful to catching that flight. And then she says, where are you flying, by the way? I said, I'm flying to Utah, but I have a connecting flight to Seattle. So I was flying from Portland to Seattle, Seattle to Utah. And she was like, why don't you go and stand in that shorter line for Seattle? Now, trust me, I've been flying for 10 years, never knew there's a shorter line for Seattle. And I go over there, and guess how many folks were there? 2. Apparently, nobody knows that there's a short line for Seattle. And then there was something going on, like K9 was there. So they were, sniffing all the folks. So once K9 is there, you don't have to take your laptop out or to take your shoes off or anything like that. So I flew past the security. I even had a time to grab a cup of coffee. Right? But here's the thing. If you give up, then you start attracting all those thoughts. But if you are positive with that mindset, you're going to attract all the positive things in your life. And sometimes you have to take those bold decisions, telling my dad that, Dad, you go back home. I'm telling the universe here that I believe I'm going to catch that flight. So how bold are you sometimes in telling the world that you're out there and you're going to make it happen? So that is a key piece in shifting that mindset and reframing from more negative to more positive mindset.
Oh, lovely. Fabulous example. And something that any of us can do, right? You just picture yourself in that winning circumstance, in the place where you want to be, and reframe it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every single day. It's an exercise, right? Every single day, you have to be aware about your thoughts and say how those are impacting you and how you can reframe those thoughts. One small change every single day goes long ways to help you become that purple cow leader.
Fantastic. All right. So that's one. The first one is that positive mindset. What's the second one?
The second one is unchaining yourself, right? We have these zones in our life. We are very comfortable in our comfort zone, right? And the reason for that is, hey, we know how things go. We can do it on our sleep. There are no risks. And then people tend to stay in that comfort zone. Because outside that comfort zone is fear zone, right? What happens in fear zone? Right? You're like scared to get out of that comfort zone because you're like fear of unknowns. I don't know, right? And sometimes you lack that self-confidence. It's like, I don't know if I can do that. And that's the phase where you're also affected by other people's opinion. Mm-hmm. Like what he or she's going to think about me if I do this, what my friends are going to think about me, what my family is going to think about me. It's a big saboteur in us called the judge. We judge ourselves. We judge other people. We judge circumstances, right? So that's the fear zone, which holds most of these individuals in getting out of that comfort zone, because the real magic happens once you push through that fear zone into that growth zone, into that learning zone, right? Learning new skills, building that muscle. Mm-hmm. So I have an interesting story to share with you.
Please.
So a few years ago, I think it was February 2018, I was working as a PMO manager, project management office manager, and my boss, who was the CIO, came to me one day in February 2018 and said, Saby, have you ever jumped from a plane? And I was like, no. I was like, are you interested? I was like, no, I have fear of heights. He was like, guess what? I'm assigning you to this project. And that project was implementing City of Portland's permit system. Now, City started that project in 2008. Until 2018, for 10 years, it had failed 4 times. So previous 4 project managers were either fired or put in different roles. One of the bureau director was fired. It was like a hot potato. Nobody wanted to, grab that and resolve that. So what that did was immediately put into that fear zone. And I was like, okay, why me? Right. And then your friends don't help you, right? They come in and say, hey, do you have a good relationship with your boss, Sabi? When are you going to get fired? Are you the next scapegoat? Right. All these things people come in and push you more into that fear zone. They're not helping you, right? So I was in that fear zone. I was like, okay, what should I do? So I said, okay, let me go and talk to my mentor because I want to get out of this project. And guess what? Who will have the best excuse to give to my boss? Of course, my mentor.
My mentor.
My mentor.
He's got my back.
Yeah. So I go and talk to my mentor and I said, this is a highly political project, failed multiple times. It's a mess. What reason should I give my boss to get out of this project? And he was like, Sabi, if anybody can do this project, you can do it. And I was like, no. You didn't get my question. Don't push me in. Get me out of this. Give me a good reason. And he was like, no, Sabi, if anybody can do this project, you can do it. I was like, okay, that's not helping. So I come back home and looking for another excuse, right? I go and talk to my wife. I said, okay, sweetheart, long hours, highly complex project. We have kids' games in the evening. It's going to put so much pressure on you with taking kids to all the games. I'm going to probably say no to this project. And guess what she said?
She said you should do it.
She said, Sabi, this is a great opportunity. You should do it, and I will take care of the kids. So I was like screaming from inside, looking for that excuse to get out of this mess. And I wasn't, next Monday morning, I go back to my office, wasn't still sure what I'm going to say to my boss, right? So around 9:00, I received this email from my daughter, which said, Daddy, if a project has failed multiple times, it's a political mess, here are the 4 things you can do. She's 10 years old. Because she's 10 years old, telling her dad how to run a complex project. Okay. I found my why at that time. I stood up from my seat. I directly went into my boss' office and I said, Jeff, I'm accepting this project. I'm not doing it for anybody else, but only for my daughter. And there is no power in this world which will stop me in making this project successful.
Yeah.
So most of the times what happens is we are looking for how and what and all those things, but we should be looking for that why. Yes. Because that why is going to give us the courage to push through that fear zone.
Yes.
So for next 2 years, all in, we actually went live on February 10th, 2020, just before pandemic happened, right? So you need that why. And then you need to surround yourself with people who believe in you, who are there to support you, who are pushing you up that and say, no, Sabi, you can do it. That is going to help you become that purple cow. Find your why and surround yourself with people who believe in your journey and who believe in you.
Oh, that's so lovely. So as I think about the practical application of this and the day-to-day, whether it's taking on that really highly complex, multiple failed project, or whether it's something like just the next promotion or that health step where someone wants to do something a little bit healthier in their own lives, or they want to take a risk on even that one task that they haven't tackled yet. It doesn't have to be big and scary. It's just that one next thing. And we're called your clear next step, because sometimes it's that very next step. And that next step doesn't have to be gigantic and world changing, but it could be life changing for you. And you may just need someone to help you say, yeah, you can do this, if you stop having those self-defeating thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing, right? Whenever we're in this fear zone, our mind plays games with us, right? And if it is, they're gonna push you even more, like going back to that negative thoughts, and you have to make your mind more resilient.
Yeah.
Right? And here's one exercise which I'm gonna tell you and tell the audience to do it is like, okay, next time you're ready to take a shower and you're in the shower and you're taking this warm shower, enjoying it, you tell yourself, you know what? I'm going to turn it to cold right now. That's going to scare the hell out of the mind inside you, and it's going to start giving you all kind of excuses. You shouldn't do it. It's too cold. You're going to get sick. All kind of excuses are going to start coming inside your internal chatter. And what you need to do is you need to silence that chatter and tell your mind that you are more stronger than that. Because once you turn into cold, there are actually benefits of taking a cold shower. People are actually taking ice shower these days because it is really healthy. And once you have done that, you have told your mind, you know what? I am more stronger than you. I am more resilient. I can do it. And once you tell yourself I can do it, guess what? These small things every single day will become more easier for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm watching the clock here and I want to make sure we get to these. So we're talking about 5 ways to stand out as a purple cow. We've got positive mindset. We've got unchaining yourself. What's next?
Next one is building relationships. Okay. When we talk about relationships, I do usually say, do you get relationships? Gratitude, empathy, and trust. That's how you build that relationship. Let's start with the first one, the gratitude. What are you grateful for? Right? So every single day, more than 25,000 people die of hunger. 10,000 of those are children. One child every 10 seconds. Think about that. So next time you're ready to take that bite of the food, you should be grateful about that. More than 750 million people across the globe don't have access to clean drinking water. So when you're ready to take that sip of water, be grateful about it. Because this all starts with, we take things for granted, but these small things go a long ways. So are you grateful to your team members for the work which they are doing? How are you recognizing them? Are you thanking them for every single day? Are you grateful? So because if you're grateful, if you're doing that, that's the first foundation for building that strong relationship.
Sure.
And then comes empathy. So empathy. So question to you, what do you think is empathy?
So I've recently defined empathy as being able to understand what someone else feels like in their own shoes, not what I would feel like in their shoes.
Absolutely. How are they gonna feel, right? But here's the thing. I actually divide it into 3 kinds.
Okay.
The first kind of empathy is when somebody's having an off day and you recognize that. Having that emotional intelligence. We can't, we are so busy in our la la land, in our, meetings, in our action plans and everything that we don't even pay attention to our team members. What are they going through? Right? Like somebody is off today. Like that's the first kind, noticing that. Second kind is when you go and have a conversation and say, hey, how are you doing? I seem like a little bit off. And then they share their story and then you can relate to that, right? How are they feeling? But the most important kind is the cognitive empathy, which is the third kind, is like you do the first, you do the second, have a conversation, and then you take an action. And action is, what can I do? How can I help? That's where you build relationships, right? And then third part is trust. If there's no trust, there's no relationship. And there are many models out there. Brené Brown talks about braving models, setting up those boundaries, being reliable, being authentic, being vulnerable, having that integrity, non-judgmental, and so on. And then Stephen M. Covey talks about 13 behaviors to build the trust. Okay. Talking about speed of trust. So those are great models. But here, I have an equation for you. And that equation is T is equal to R plus C plus I divided by SI.
Okay, you're gonna have to do that again.
Okay, T is equal to R plus C
plus
I divided by
plus
SI.
Divided by SI. All right, so what do those stand for?
Being reliable. R stands for being reliable. Are you the person who shows up on time? Are you? So if I didn't show up on time today, guess what, Sinikka? That trust level is going to go down. It's like, I don't know, right? That question comes in. I'm going to trust Saby for next time, right? The trust level goes down. C stands for being competent. So if your boss and if your manager or anybody's giving you a task, can you actually deliver that task?
Yeah.
So how do you become competent? Competence by learning new skills, by building that muscle and doing all that work. That's how you become competent. And then I stands for integrity. Doing the right thing when even nobody's watching. That's the key piece in there. If you don't have that integrity, that trust is going to go away right there and then, or it's going to come down. And it's divided by SI. SI stands for self-interest. Okay. If everything and anything what you're doing is for you, your own self, your team is not going to trust you. So inversely, if you want to build a trust within your team members, take that self-interest out. Do it for a bigger vision, bigger picture.
Yep.
That's how you build that trust.
Yep.
Right. So that's how you build those relationships. And once you take that self-interest out, you basically become a Sherpa. You know, a Sherpa leader. What's a Sherpa? Have you heard about Sherpas?
Sure, the ones who carry things for others, right?
Yeah. Sherpa is somebody who helps a mountaineer climb Mount Everest.
Yep.
They carry the load for them. So how can you become that Sherpa for your team members? How can you say, you know, what can I do to make you successful? Because if you help other individuals to make successful, you are going to be successful. But most of the time as leaders, we think about ourselves. What can I do to make myself successful? No, that's not the way. Once you shift that mindset and you start thinking about your team and say, what can I do to make you successful? Even not teams, even any individual you meet. What can I do to make you successful? That's the growth. That's where you become that purple cow leader right there. When you start, asking those questions. And then the last one is energy.
Energy. Okay,
Yes.
Tell us about energy.
So we are all connected with energy, right? So there's two kind of energies. One is, of course, the negative energy.
Okay.
And then is the positive energy. So negative energies, those are the people who have a problem for every solution, right? So they're going to find what's wrong. This is not the way. You're going to fail. This can never be done. Have all the excuses in the life. And once they enter the room, the room usually gets silent, right? You can feel like it's like wet log. Even somebody's burning, they're going to come in and just extinguish that fire. And then there is positive energy. Positive energy is somebody who helps to find solutions. Says, how can I resolve this problem? What can I do to make this successful? And the moment they enter, they lights up the room. Right? It's like, oh my God, because if you're energetic, your energy comes when you're passionate. If you're passionate about something, if you're delivering projects, if you're not passionate about it, guess what? Your team is never going to be behind you. No matter what kind of leader are you. If you're not passionate means your energy. So be passionate, that will give you that energy. And then try to find that purple cow, right? The 18th cow. Have you heard the story about 17 cows?
I don't know the story about 17 cows.
Okay. So how much time do we have to give a story about 17 cows? Maybe next time. I don't know.
We got a couple minutes. Go ahead. Can you give us a story about 17 cows?
Sinikka is like, I want to hear those 17 cows
I want to
stories,
hear about
Saby.
17 cows.
So the story is like this, that there is this old guy and he worked very hard in his life. And he had 17 cows. And then he gets sick. He had 2 sons, 1 daughter. And then he's on his deathbed. And he brings his first son and says, son, you worked very hard for me. You helped me, took good care of me. I'm going to give you half of my cows. Brings in the second son and say, I'm going to give you 1/3 of my cows. And brings in the daughter and say, I'm going to give you 1/9 of my cows. And then dies. Okay. Now, 17 is a prime number. You can't divide by 2. You can't divide by 3. You can't divide by 9, right? So what happens? They start fighting. They start fighting with each other and start blaming. Blaming who?
Blaming the father, I assume.
Blaming the father and blaming each other, siblings, right? It's like, why did you get like half of the cows? I only got 1/9 or 1/3 and all. So they keep fighting and fighting. And suddenly one day, there was this old wise guy who was walking through that village with his purple cow. And he sees them fighting. He was like, why are you fighting? And they tell the story, like how they're father was so stupid, whatever, and couldn't even divide these cows among us. And he takes a pause and say, okay, don't fight, take my cow. So here's the calculation, Sinikka, where we're going to talk about. So 17 plus 1 becomes what?
18.
So the first son gets how many cows? Half of the cows. So what is that number?
He's going to get 9 cows.
9 cows. Keep that in mind. 9 cows. The son comes in and he gets 1/3 of the cows. So what is that number? 6 cows, right? And the daughter gets 1/9 of the cow. So 18 divided by 9. What is that number?
She should get 2 cows.
2 cows. So sum it up. 9 plus 6 is what?
9 plus 6 is 15.
Plus 2?
That's 17.
17 cows, right? So this old wise guy grabs his cow and walks away.
Oh, that's excellent.
So the story behind this is you need to find that purple cow. Sometimes, the solution is already there. Sometimes you have to give from your side. And the solution is always there. So be that purple cow, lead with that positive mindset, unchange yourself, find your why, surround yourself with people who believe in you, build that relationship. A purple cow leader get relationships, be that Sherpa, and lead with that amazing energy. You will become that purple cow leader.
Oh, that's really lovely. Thank you so much, Saby. This has been delightful. So for our listeners, if you are just joining in, you have got to stop and rewind because you've missed some really amazing things. We've been here with Saby Waraich, and we have been talking about 5 ways to stand out as a purple cow. And this has just been amazing. So Saby, though, this wouldn't be the Even Better podcast if I didn't ask you my trademark question. What's making you even better these days?
Getting out of your comfort zone, giving your mind and your brain a little bit extra push. I call it just the 1%. You don't have to do everything, right? What is that small change which you can do every single day, which is going to help you to build that muscle? And that's the only thing which I ask everyone. Just do one small thing. And for me, it may be being more consistent with doing more physical exercise, be more mindful about things, spending a little bit more time in meditation, right? Taking care of your team. One small thing. Hey, just going in there and saying, hey, how are you doing? What can I do to help you become better? Investing in them. Those are the small things which are really helping me become even a better leader.
Lovely. I love it. Thank you. Saby, thank you so much for your time today. I am so grateful. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Most welcome.
It's been a joy. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for joining in. And on behalf of all of us here at Your Clear Next Step, we hope the rest of your day is even better.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.